Hi, I'm Jesse Ghostrap.
And I'm Drew Cordle, and you're watching TV Binge Drinking. I myself am sipping on some iced coffee, and I promise it's not anything harder than that, even though it might sound a little bit stiffer drink, judging by my actions. But yes, I'm drinking some iced coffee in a Slytherin cup that my wife is a big Harry Potter fan, and we stumbled upon these cups at Target the other night. They had one for every house, and I am the only one that claims Slytherin, so it is my cup. I digress.
Well, this Gryffindor is actually drinking something that found online a recipe from a concoction that some people put together trying to approximate what they have tasted at Galaxy's Edge in Orlando, Florida. And I have yet to be able to go to the actual park, but I thought I'll at least try this iteration of the drink, which people seem to believe is close enough to the real thing. But it involves rice milk mixed with some frozen pineapple chunks, coconut flavor, passion fruit flavor, lime flavor, watermelon flavor, and then, of course, blue food coloring, the most important ingredient. Not for taste, of course, but so that your drink can look like it is a blue milk. But so we go. Lovely blue milk, which, of course, I'm sure Lucas never intended for it to taste like such a wonderful fruity blend. But uh, at the same time, of course, they were going to do something a little more interesting than just milk that's colored blue
Right.
when they actually put the park together. So I am all for this rice milk fruity flavored drink,
Yes.
regardless of which. Cheers, my Slytherin friend.
Ah, cheers to you.
And I will say this is, in my opinion, very delicious, this rice milk drink. I believe I sent you a link to it myself. Uh, so at some juncture, if you were so inclined, you could try it out for yourself.
I will have to at some point.
But it is a tasty beverage.
It does sound quite good. Much better than this iced black coffee. I'm so accustomed to the taste that it doesn't even bother me anymore. So, but that's the perks of a diet. But but it's for better things. So at least I try to tell myself that. I feel better when I do this.
Well, at least it can get you in the spirit of House Slytherin.
Yes, there you go. There you go.
So in this episode, we are finishing out season one with another complete unit. The first three episodes, a sort of unit, getting us immersed into the world of the Mandalorian, introduced to the child. The last three episodes we talked about a little more episodic and individual in nature.
Yes.
But here is the finale, and jumping ahead just a tiny bit, even though it's the topic for this episode, these two episodes, is just to say that disappointing is the wrong word, but it feels like all this cool stuff happens, all this exciting stuff happens, these emotional marks and movements, character reveals. It's all right here contained in the last two episodes, and then you had to wait for season two. This all feels like prologue to me. Season one feels like prologue to the story that I'm really excited to see going forward.
Right.
But that's not to say that these are bad episodes of television. Not at all.
Yeah.
Chapter 7 is The Reckoning and brings back our director, Deborah Chow, from episode 3. And I believe she is 2 for 2 in terms of terrifically directed, great episodes of The Mandalorian, because The Reckoning is a terrific episode. Both of these episodes, I think, are pretty terrific in their own right.
Yeah, definitely.
But Drew, what you have to say about Chapter 7 specifically?
Uh, you know, I think I'll just go ahead and say the negatives, and I don't think this has to do with this episode per se, or Deborah Chow. I think it's just the way that the season was structured. But when you know the only problem I kind of have with this episode is that we kind of have to chunkily go get other characters back in the fray to kind of get the ball rolling for this episode. And it's, I mean, I think they make it work as best they can, but it also just feels like, oh yeah, we need everybody in for this finale. They're all on different planets, so we're gonna just have them go planet to planet and pick them up, and then go back to Navarro to get the action started. Is the way it feels, but it's still nice to see like these characters again. Of course, Kara's pretty cool. Quill, Nick Nolte's character. It's nice, and of course the IG character, IG-11, I believe, Taika Waititi, the voice of that character, and he was really funny in the first episode. I don't know if we talked too much about him, but he's been reprogrammed and and is back for more comedic relief in in the this episode. But I like having them all back, but it does kind of feel clunky uh, in the way that they're brought together. But that's the only negative thing I have to say about this episode. I like, I like the plot line that Reef Karga's, kind of luring them back, but the events of the first three episodes have taken a toll in a lot of ways. Empire or Imperial Remnant has kind of made a claim on the planet and on this outpost, and the Mandalorians were mostly wiped out. We find out a little bit further down the line. He kind of makes some cool decisions, kind of on his feet. You don't know for sure what side he's going to be on through a lot of this. And I think Carl Weathers does an awesome job of being this character. He's exactly what you would expect someone in this line of work to think like, and I think he respects Mando, but he's also a professional and likes to be paid. So there's going to be some betrayal. But the fact that he ends up siding with Mando in this it's a natural and kind of good character moment. I really enjoy it, and I enjoy kind of the reintroduction of the client, Werner Herzog, and then the kind of reveal that he's kind of just a henchman to someone else. We see that kind of in an explosive way, just the way that all plays out, and seeing some Death Troopers make an appearance, and unfortunately, we kind of we lose we lose a character kind of the end of this episode. There's a little bit of tension running, and I think there's, like you said, there's a lot going on. We got a lot of events happening here. It's all moving pretty fast, but it keeps a lot of good character moments going. We know that the next episode is going to have, the big moments, but this one is a good primer for that, and it kind of puts the stakes on the table, and I think they're pretty decent high stakes for the story at this point. Again, I'm like you. I think it could have been this just goes back to the way the season is, and not so much the episode. I think maybe it could have been built up to a little more organically through other episodes too. But we'll see what they do with the next season. But for what it is, for however we got here, I like the end result. I would give this episode. I think it's definitely a step up from the last three that we watched. It's not quite as good as the first two episodes, or I mean the episodes 2 and 3. But I think it's a little more in line with maybe the first episode, maybe a little bit better than that. I'll give it an A minus uh, because I really did enjoy it. Like I said, really is a good lead in to the last episode, which I'll say more about in a minute. But I really enjoyed.
Like, I feel like I agree and disagree at the same time with some of what you were complaining about. Just because, like, I mean, and you were kind of saying it too, like your problems aren't inherently with this episode so much as the structuring of the season, and that's something that I already brought up too. That I feel like there are things that would play out better if some of the rest of the season felt like it was building to this in a way. Like there are things that could have been more organically led up to, as opposed to, oh yeah, we're here at the end of the season. Here's everything. Blah. And it just doesn't feel completely natural that we got here to this point. I will say that, like, when Quill dies at the end of the episode, um, that's one thing that's not quite as effective as it could be. Again, based on complete development as it maybe could have been throughout. Like, it's not bad. It's just like, oh, okay, I guess we're doing this. And on top of that, you mentioned the tension, and the tension is well done. And at the same time, my biggest complaint is probably too many shots of Quill riding away. Like, I get it, you're about to kill him, and maybe that's just a certain way of reading the way it's playing out. But like, I felt like I could see the writing on the wall too much,
Right.
and it could have not made it feel so obvious, I guess, like that they were gonna lead to this moment of pinning the heroes to the wall. But at the same time, the feeling of hopelessness and how they're going to get out of this situation is pretty well executed in a certain other way of speaking, like the actual in the town stuff and seeing Mr. Giancarlo show up. That's pretty awesome. Uh, as much as I love Werner Herzog, um, that reveal is pretty fantastic. But I also want more of the villains too. That's another thing that's like, oh, and now we're here, and
Yes.
we're already supposed to feel a lot for this big bad that we've only met here at the very, very, very end, and
Right.
mostly just a couple scenes of intensity, which Giancarlo Esposito is more than capable of portraying that menace immediately. But in a good narrative, I still want to see that developed, and I don't feel like we're there yet. And maybe we will be there. That's why this feels like prologue, and that's why disappointing is almost the wrong way of putting it, just because I'm anticipating where we're going to go.
Right.
And again, I'm jumping ahead just a little bit because we haven't quite addressed chapter 8. But it's just like, oh, and here we are. We're at the end, and that's what chapter 7 feels like it's setting up. We're in the end game of season 1, and it just zoop, happens really fast. But I did really like personally the uh, reprogramming of IG-11. I thought that sequence was really well executed. When they're done right, I really like sequences like that kind of flashback. And meanwhile, while you were on these adventures, I was training this droid,
Yeah.
and I thought that was a well done sequence. And Taika Waititi is also, like you said, fantastic, a really funny performer, and also happens to be a terrific director. I enjoy many of his prior works, especially What We Do in the Shadows. But yeah, like, it's lots of really terrific character ideas, and at the same time, not quite the emotional heft that they fully need. And that's why I ultimately fall exactly where you fell, which is an A minus. It does a lot right, and then at the same time doesn't quite do everything that it could do. Just and part of that's not the episode's fault. Not like the episode itself is structured completely perfectly either, I guess. But it's still a terrific episode. Like I think an A minus is still in excellent territory, you know?
Oh yeah.
Like there's still a lot to take away and a lot to enjoy about it. And I think a lot of it is very well done. And I feel like it's also worth mentioning that this episode came out right before the Rise of Skywalker and introduced the idea of force healing that we also got to see play out on the big screen right after this episode, which I thought was an interesting kind of loop. I don't know exactly how much they coordinated that, but it feels like they had to have, had this conversation in the story group, at least in some ways. And seeing that moment is another, I don't know, important, powerful detail, especially when it comes to like Carl Weathers' character. I enjoyed him in the first episodes. I enjoy him even more at the end here. I think actually we actually get to see him as a character more than just a guy who's handing out the jobs. We actually get to see him have some involvement in the narrative and making decisions that affect things. And yeah, like it makes a big difference. And that's one of the big moments right there is when he's healed by the child.
Right.
He basically has the same come to Jesus moment that Mando had earlier on this season when getting the egg. It's like, oh, there's something special here. And I maybe don't fully understand it, but there's this infant creature who is special and wanting to be protective of it. Those character moments make a big difference and help make the episode feel special, even where it maybe falls a little bit below perfection. So an A minus for chapter 7, The Reckoning, which moves us right into chapter 8, Redemption, which, mentioning Taika Waititi as a director, is the inherent transition. Not only is he IG-11, but he directed episode 8, and you can tell that right from the jump because he has that sense of humor and that zippy sensibility. But at the very front of it is one of those, oh, I wish we saw more of these kind of things where you're seeing what the troopers are up to while the action is happening down in town and so forth. You're getting to see these troopers just kind of hanging out in a cliff face and basically just going, guess we don't need to. Like, I love the moment where they're like, I don't know if we should press this too much, considering that the big guy down there is already killing folks, that disagree with them, and like
Right.
on top of that, this is also the reason that Jason Sudeikis got death threats for punching Baby Yoda.
Which is just hilarious and pathetic, but hilarious.
It is hilarious. Yeah, Sudeikis is great though. There in the beginning of the episode, it's just a really funny opening sequence right from the jump, and Adam Pally as well. Like it's just a really well done, funny sequence that also sets us up for the big action sequence too, with IG-11 racing in and just laying waste really quickly,
Right.
which is something kind of set up in that first episode, the capabilities of IG-11, but really fun and well done in this. It's a little bit Deus Ex Machina, but I think it's established enough to work in context,
Yeah.
essentially putting our characters into their positions so that they can try to make their escape. And still not an easy escape
No.
by any means. I will say that the same problems that I mentioned on chapter 7 kind of crop up here because I feel like there is emotional payoff that doesn't completely register as richly as it could have. had the rest of the season built up to it all more naturally. But I do like the way it plays out just the same. I enjoy the IG-11 sacrifice. It's a well done little beat. Maybe pushed a little bit too hard, but at the same time, like I like it. I like the child holding back the flames
Oh yeah.
moment. That's a nice, terrific shot and a great little beat, you know. And our one and only moment of Pedro Pascal San's helmet,
Yes.
and they sell it for what it's worth. But it's nice to see the human guy underneath, you know.
Yeah.
I'm hesitant to go too deeply into that side of it because should he or should he not remove the helmet? Because there's this, I guess, debate you could have one way or the other, narratively speaking, like how often we should or shouldn't see him without a helmet. I get the this is the way aspect of constantly having a helmet on. And at the same time, I really like this moment that we get to see him too. So how long does he stick to that mentality or not stick to that mentality? I don't know.
Right.
But obviously in this, he's having to put his trust more into a droid, which has its own palpability to it as well. And it's something that I enjoy because it's so innately Star Wars to deal with the droids through and to see the story at least to some measure through them. But yeah, Chapter 8 is uh, a terrific episode to end the season on and leave so much hanging at the same time. I do think that the jetpack bit at the end is pretty cool and exciting, but it feels almost just a little bit abrupt too. It's another one of those things where I'm like, oh, and here's your jetpack that you can use, and hint, hint, probably here soon.
Right.
Here's your prop to use at the finale. I don't know, that's maybe a little bit too convenient, but nonetheless, it makes for a fun, cool action beat. And there's no way we could escape talking about this episode without mentioning the dark saber,
Oh yes.
which just kind of seemed obvious in a way, but also kind of blew my mind to see it as a grace note to the season and to think, holy cow, what are they going to go into next? And in that spirit, I want to mention that um, earlier today I also pulled up um, the finale of the Clone Wars, which the final season aired on Disney Plus after Mandalorian Season One, and it actually included what's referenced in this episode, which is the Siege of Mandalore.
Right.
That I mean, like I feel like it's in a way unfair to compare because the final season of Clone Wars is coming at the end of this epic journey of getting to know these characters and know that story, right? It has all this established lore around it. So it's like, how do you compare that to the end of season one of The Mandalorian? But holy crap, that the last four episodes of Clone Wars final season, that is A plus Star Wars stuff. That's some of the best Star Wars content that there's ever been. And the Siege of Mandalore happens in Phantom Apprentice, which is a really terrific, terrific episode, which has Ray Park returning for some fighting in motion capture as Darth Maul. And Darth Maul is one of the greatest characters throughout Clone Wars and also in Rebels. I just thought that was worth bringing up for different reasons, including the direct connective tissue of the Siege of Mandalore.
Right.
But also, my hopes for what's going forward is partially built on having seen Clone Wars and seen Rebels and understanding the dark saber and what that could mean going forward and I don't know if the Mandalorian does enough within itself to convince us
Right.
of how exciting it's going to be moving forward. Maybe it'll get there, but I feel like it doesn't completely sell its own story, which is I honestly would give chapter 8 an A minus as well. So I think like chapters 2 and 3 are the peaks of the season, but that's not this to diminish the finale because I think the finale still has a lot that's really terrific about it at the same time.
Yeah, I a lot of times I can kind of get tiresome of finales because in general because a lot of times you're having to tie up a season worth of plot of emotional tissue into a 40 minute to an hour long episode, and it's never going to satisfy everybody. Finales usually don't, or season finales, especially not series finales. But even season finales, there's a lot of stuff that can kind of rub people the wrong way, and then they gotta wait until the next season. But with this, I really enjoyed kind of like the first 3 episodes. These 2 episodes, it was almost like a movie. Like we got 2 movies and then 3 standalone episodes in between them, which you know is kind of not really it's just not very smooth for like the whole season. And again, that's just the way that they chose to do the season, and you can't hold it against every episode or individual episodes. It's just the way they chose to do it. But I really did enjoy this episode, kind of as an action romp. And Taika Waititi is, well, he's really funny. He's capable of really directing great humor. And What We Do in the Shadows is not only a great movie, but the TV series is also really funny. And he's also involved, of course, in that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And it's so funny. In a lot of ways, I like the show better than the movie too, which is saying a lot because the movie is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. But the show is also absolutely hilarious. And but he's capable of these action beats too. And I think and I'm not trying to bash this movie. I think it might be a tad overrated, but I still enjoy it a lot, and that's Thor Ragnarok. And but he did something with that I still really enjoyed, and he kept a really fast, fun pace and made it feel like a space opera type movie with his punchy humor in it, and I feel like he did that, but a little bit better in this episode. And I think that's a compliment. I still, there are things that things I would also prefer to have maybe a little fleshed out more, but the details of this episode and kind of the visuals and the way certain things play out, I really enjoy it. I really enjoy kind of how intense just the standoff the continues to be with Moff Gideon and like the Death Troopers and Fire Troopers, and Mando will try to do something that we've seen him successfully do in other episodes, and it's not quite enough to get out of this. Or the child uses the Force to stay the fire, but his when he uses the Force, it kind of gasses him. He's not able to do much. Like, so, they don't really have a lot of tricks, and it takes a lot of kind of moxie between the whole crew to get out. And, like you said, ID 11 sacrificing himself. It's a little, quick. I wish he would have been a little more of the whole season because I really enjoyed that character. And again, like kind of the emotional thing with Mando and the droids, it's played out. But again, I wish there was a little bit more to it. But I just want to, just the aesthetic note, I want to mention, I love seeing those flashbacks and seeing the super battle droids. Seeing those in a live action show in, 2019 when I watched it the first time, of course, now. But it's just really cool. I still love the prequel designs, and um, people can think what they will of the prequels. I don't think that Attack of the Clones is going to be anybody's favorite Star Wars movie or Phantom Menace either. And I think a lot of people do like Revenge of the Sith, and I think that's great. I don't think it's the only good thing about the prequels, but I do just love some of the aesthetics of the prequels and seeing them kind of here and just you know and like you said, just details that we've seen all along of Clone Wars and Rebels, seeing it in the show, like the dark saber. I really like it, but I wanted to stand up to that, and I am with you. I give this an A minus too. It's a good episode. It's solid. A minus. It's not bad at all. But I just wish there was a little bit more to it, and hopefully, coming, very soon, we're going to see a lot more. But to me, and this is going to sound really picky to any MCU fans out there, I've probably already pissed you off with that Thor Ragnarok comment, so why not do it again? The dark saber scene in general, yeah, it was cool to see it, and it was kind of mind blowing to see it, but I also felt like it was just a little too post MCU post credit sequence. Like, oh, he's got this, and there's kind of no build up to it. I mean, there's a little bit, there's little hints, but it's more of, ooh, he's got this. Move your hands together, rub your hands together.
Yeah, I had that same problem. Like,
Yeah,
just because like you want there to be more woven into what we see already.
right. One more thing I want to mention that I loved about this episode was just kind of we learned the fate of the other Mandalorians except for the armor because she is still alive and comes back. She doesn't say knee though, but no, she kind of has again. I would like to see this expounded upon later because she knows quite a bit and she knows what the Jedi are, or at least the idea of them. So she knows that the child's abilities are akin to that of the Jedi. And so now he's on this quest to find enemy sorcerers, as he refers to them as. And I like that idea, and I like the lore that kind of that brings to it. Kind of seeing the Jedi from another perspective instead of instead of what we've commonly seen them as, is we're usually seeing the story, if not from their perspective, from someone who's very close to them's perspective. And uh, this is completely different, but again, it hasn't really been developed yet. I want to see more of that in season two. I think season two. If I mean the talent that they have involved. I mean, I hate to jump ahead, but we got some great new cast members announced lined up. You have Rosario Dawson again talking about Rebels and Clone Wars. She's playing Ahsoka, which is kind of a big deal, and I'm not sure how that's going to play out, and I want it to be done correctly. I want it to be a big deal. And I think, of course, Dave Filoni's involved. Know that there's going to be some care put into that, but I'm still not completely sold on everything, but I'm still excited about it. And then, the other cast members, we've got Michael Biehn, we've got Timothy Olyphant, WWE wrestler Sasha Banks, which she was in the trailer. She was cloaked and possibly a Jedi. So who knows? On that, I could see that. I like her. I actually like Sasha Banks quite a bit. I don't know how she's going to be as an actress, even though there's a little bit of acting that goes into wrestling. But I mean, they're not the same. Uh, Same beast. But and then there's the directing pool. A lot of people coming back, and we also have some others coming in, and notably we have a little nobody director that probably nobody's ever heard of, Robert Rodriguez, doing an episode. I can't wait for that because I think uh, this kind of story is in his wheelhouse. If Could you imagine like a Desperado-esque Mando episode? Stuff blowing up left and right, staying true to the show, but still like showcase of his style. Um, I think that could be really cool, but who knows what kind of episode he will have. And I forgot to mention that Tamora Morrison's coming back as Boba Fett. There's a lot to be excited about, but again, I want it to make sense. I want it to feel right, and I want these episodes to kind of gel and not just again. Like it's hard to say. Like you said, disappointing isn't the word for it because this is good television. It's not bad at all. It's got some a couple of really good episodes and some solid episodes. And, the worst episodes are definitely not bad. But I feel like with Star Wars, just it could be a little bit better. And I think that they know the fan base they've developed, and I think they will take it up a notch for season two. The trailer for season two looked really good to me. There's not too much in it, but enough to know that it's gonna be another fun ride.
I'm looking forward to season 2 as well, I do hope that it's actually telling a story and not just, and here's this thing you've seen before, and here's that thing you've seen before, and
Right.
like, oh, the dark saber. Like, no, I want to actually see the story around it.
Yeah.
I want it to organically be a part of things and not just be a detail.
Right.
And I'm not saying that it won't be, but that's just kind of the potential pitfall because they do have a lot that they've already set up in season 1 and things that we know are coming that make this kind of curious in terms of where are we going to go now, and is this going to feel like a complete journey? It makes you wonder like how much Favreau has plotted before he ever started.
Right.
Like, does he have this whole journey kind of figured out, uh, or is it just a germ of an idea that he's working as he goes? Like, I feel like he probably has a lot of it plotted out, but we haven't completely felt it yet. We've just seen the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. But nonetheless, that's none of that to say that I'm not excited for season 2. I'm definitely excited for season 2. But I think that wraps it for season 1, though. Discussion of season 1 of The Mandalorian. A solid season that I would probably give in total an A minus as an average.
Yeah. I think that's where I fall too, and that's fair.
We are unanimous throughout this entire season, my friend. But I suppose that's not too surprising. Uh, just the same, Drew, thanks as always.
My pleasure as always.
Sticking around this with me. And tune in next time. Soon enough, we'll be diving into season 2 of The Mandalorian when it starts up on Disney Plus.
This is the way.
Stick around.